this product called the Bair Hugger, and it's a warming device. And basically, it's this blanket that has little holes in it, and it's attached to a machine that sits on the floor, and there's a tube that shoots hot air up into the blanket, and then through the little holes, this hot air goes onto the person's body. The problem with that is that the hot air then is going onto the body and overflowing down over the sides of the table, hitting the floor. Now hot air rises, so it's picking up the bacteria, the debris that's on the floor, and that can then rise back up with the hot air rising, and then it's into that surgical area.
Prioritizing profits. Prioritizing
dangerous drug and product cases.
Welcome, everyone. Another episode of Prioritizing Profits, Dangerous Drug, and Product Cases.
And other interesting legal things.
Fun facts and recent stories in the news, recalls. We try to cover just about every base there is.
Juicy things that incite lots of commentary and some ire on the social sites.
Yep. Anything to keep the interest and maybe get a few laughs here and there.
Exactly, and try to avoid as many personal attacks on us as we can, but that's all right. We're tough skinned, aren't we?
So how's your last week gone? How's everything going so far? How are you feeling today?
Actually, I feel really awesome. Really good week. I had mentioned last week that I was starting doing some serious training, some serious weight training. So that's been good. I've had a couple of sessions so far, really enjoying it.
How did the first few go?
Really good. So, it's definitely, I work out a lot, but when you're doing it on your own, you don't necessarily push yourself really hard. And I wasn't trying to do really heavy weights. I always kind of was one of those people who was a little worried. Like I didn't want to bulk up too much, which, it's pretty impossible anyway with that,
It's always funny when I hear people say that because it's like, as a guy that goes to the gym and that's all we want,
exactly
it's like it is insanely hard for us to people to bulk up and to put on muscle. So the concern of like, I don't want to lift too much weight and I might get base, like it's a lot harder than you think.
No, I get it. It doesn't just accidentally happen. And you walk out of the gym after the first day and like, oh shit, nothing's gonna fit me anymore. But actually just for like health reasons, osteoporosis, really, I want to do some more weight bearing and so heavier weights, definitely load on the spine. So it's been good. It's been, I'm actually like having fun with it. It's not like one of those things where I dread. I go in there for, an hour and I'm really liking it. My trainer's awesome. She's pretty impressive. She's like won some, powerlifting titles and that sort of thing. So anyway, again, I don't think that's like right around the corner for me, but who knows?
That's good to hear that you're enjoying it. I think for a lot of people, working out is like that 1 hour or, that one activity, few activities a week that they don't look forward to. It's something they know that they should. Yeah, exactly. Get through it. They know they should be doing it. And afterwards, they probably feel great. But it's the leading up to and during it they're not a big fan of. So it's good you're enjoying it. And
I look forward to it. So.
Yeah. And I know what you mean, too. It's like when you're by yourself, it's kind of hard to push yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of people like to have workout buddies or go to the gym with other people is because when you have someone else watching you and like waiting on you and pushing you.
Yeah, cheering you on.
It's
good stuff. Good stuff.
It is. So it's good that you're getting along with your trainer as well. I feel like that it's like it's almost like a therapist. You got to make sure that that relationship's good, or the entire thing falls apart.
Yeah. And how about you? I know you've got like a lot of exciting stuff coming up. In fact, we will not be recording next week because you have such a crazy schedule, but we will still be releasing a podcast, some I think best ofs and that sort of thing, until we get back the next week. But why don't you give us a little information about what's happening in the life of Ben Showard?
Yeah. June, I kind of always knew June was going to be a crazy month. Right off the top of my head too is moving. This is when my lease is coming up at the end of June. And thank God we found a place. I'm living with my buddy John. We got a two-person little townhome, but it's pretty big. And it has nice sized rooms, both master bedrooms. But that's going to be happening next week, which is moving. It's nice. It's exciting going to a new place, but the moving process is always awful. And then outside of the podcast and Showard Law Firm, I work in Web3, so like NFTs and crypto and everything around that area. And for anyone that's unfamiliar with NFTs, I feel like it's kind of a very memeable thing right now. But it stands for non-fungible token, which is essentially just a way to prove ownership over an online asset. And the simplest way you could probably think of it is like with sports tickets or concert tickets, something like that, is where, you have an online asset that you can verify is owned by a certain individual. And there's a lot of reasons for why I think that tech is valuable. But, a lot of the stories that get blown out of proportion, kind of like the McDonald's thing, right? They write like the most clickbaity type of titles is like, this NFT sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, which they do.
Yeah.
And it's a picture of a monkey, some absurd thing, which, it is crazy. There's a lot of pretty stupid stuff that goes on in NFTs. But for the project that I've been working on, I've been working with them for a little over a year now, but the last 8 to 9 months has been releasing a new NFT collection under our already established brand.
And what is that project?
So the project is, or our organization is called Monkey DAO, but the NFT collection that we own is called Solana Monkey Business, which is on Solana blockchain. And it's pretty much a top collection on Solana. I mean, when Solana was up at like $200 per soul.
Good old days.
Like good old days, yeah. I mean, each monkey was worth 30 grand. Like when I won mine, it was 30 grand for my NFT, which is insane to think about.
Well, and when you say each monkey, I mean, basically it's a piece of art.
Yeah.
I mean, and I guess I had always kind of heard it described as being like almost like trading cards.
Yeah.
How people used to trade like either baseball cards or then like the Pokemon things, that sort of thing. So it's a piece of art, but like digital art.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. And there's a lot of comparisons to trading cards with the way that collections work and, rarities and everything along those lines.
I get all excited if there's one that's really impossible to find.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
Special attributes and that sort of thing.
Exactly. So ours is it's pixelated monkeys, and it's a lot of people love the art. I think a lot of people kind of see it as this pixelated and very dumb and very easy, but pixel art is very hard to create. If you've actually tried putting together a pixel collection and do it,
not.
Yeah,
I don't even know where to start.
It looks super
where to find
simple.
A pixel.
Yeah, it looks super simple, but it is difficult, and the owning that NFT gets access to the Monkey DAO community, which is, in my mind, a very valuable community. We have a lot of like insanely smart people. When I was working on the board, I don't know if people have heard of FanDuel.
I think that's...
Yeah, massive sports betting website. Huge. So one of the co-founders, Leslie, was actually on the board with me. And so we were working with her on a raise. Sai, who's a Harvard securities lawyer, he helped us form our C Corp, Delaware C Corp. So we actually are an official organization that we can own a bank account and we can sign contracts under the business or organization name, and various other types of experienced individuals in their own fields. And so all these individuals come together and try to contribute to the greater good of the organization. And
so it's almost like a big corporation, it sounds like, almost.
Yeah, so it's called DAO, or Monkey DAO, because DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization,
right?
Which essentially is like a company ran by its stockholders or shareholders. And instead of it being like you have a board for a usual company, instead of that, the NFTs count as like a stock. And so if you own one of the Gen 2s, one of the SMBs, Solana Monkey businesses, then you can vote on everything that happens. And so that's what ends up happening, is that when we have any big decisions that we need to make, we just put up a vote for the community and they get to decide what happens. And it doesn't even have to be something that we create. Anyone in the community can put up a vote, and if it gets enough support, then it gets pushed through and we act on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, and then we've been working on a collection for the last 9 months of another 15,000 monkeys.
Wow. Yeah. So I was trying to explain this, and I was trying to say, okay, they're going to release them, but it's actually, you call it minting them, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that's But it's basically releasing for sale, or what is? I mean, how is it minted? It sounds like a coin. Like they stamp it or something.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it is. Is when minting it refers to essentially establishing it on the blockchain. Okay. Like when you stamp a coin, it's being created. It's being it's published on the blockchain, so it's there.
That makes so much sense. So the art is created, but then when it's minted is when it's like available on the blockchain, and then you sell it on the blockchain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because
I'll walk through this slowly.
and every transaction, anything that happens on Solana is on the blockchain, and that's why a lot of people see so much potential in cryptocurrency, is because the blockchain technology and it's been incorporated into a lot of businesses already, is essentially everything is trackable and public, and it's no one can mess with it. There's no central entity that can change things. It all is out there in the open, and just no one can mess with it, I guess.
Okay, but it still is affected by like interest rates, by the stock market, right? No, but so what is it that's making, like, for example, when Solana was really crashing? Yeah. What makes that happen? I mean, it's sounding like it might be a dumb question, but
no. I mean, it is kind of similar to stocks. Like, the economy can go down, and how the economy does, and interest rates, those all affect cryptocurrency as well. As, for example, when COVID was coming out and all those stimulus checks were going out and interest rates were going really low, cryptocurrency was going insane. It was pumping up to all-time highs. That's when you saw Solana at like 250. You saw Bitcoin hit like 60K, some insane numbers. And then now with, the economy kind of going down the gutter, interest rates going up, and everything's kind of getting much more tighter. And a lot more regulation coming in, then you start seeing prices and all cryptocurrency across the board start going down.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there's also a lot of shady stuff going on. I'm sure a lot of people heard of the entire FTX debacle, which was insane. I mean, FTX, for anyone unaware, was a cryptocurrency exchange. So it's kind of a platform where people are able to buy and sell cryptocurrency, and a lot of there's KYC. You can put in your debit card, and you can do it very much over the board, which you need those for cryptocurrency to kind of become more mainstream. But FTX was everywhere. I mean, they sponsored the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Stadium. They had the FTX on the top. A bunch of esports companies they sponsored as well. I mean, they were all over the place. And then from literally over like a 2-day period, they just went bankrupt. And
that's what kind of caused the whole thing to crash. And there were like a lot of celebrities involved with that too. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the Shark Tank guys, I forgot what his name is, but bald guy. He was invested in it. I'm pretty sure Tom Brady
Steve Curry.
Yeah, Steph Curry.
Steph Curry.
Yeah. They had a ton of endorsements. They were massive donators to Democrats and Republicans.
Oh God, but playing both sides for sure.
Yeah, but what's funny is that they only published it and made it public that they were donating in Democrats, because they knew on news stations that's how you get liked. That's how you're looked more fondly upon by general.
Oh, here we go with the news conspiracy thing.
It's not even conspiracy. Literally, you can see interviews of Sam Bankman-Fried, SBF, who was the CEO at the time. Like, he was very open with it, because there's ways you can kind of go under the table with donations, and you don't have to make it public. Right. And he literally said, they donated the exact same amount to Republicans and Democrats, but they knew that if they made the Republicans under the table and the Democrats was out there, they would be looked upon more fondly.
Yeah.
According to The Guardian, Bankman-Fried says he also funneled contributions in dark money to Republicans, but he did so that way so the left didn't know what he was up to. 9 of the senators, or groups aligned with them in today's hearing, had received campaign donations from FTX specifically. At least 6 have since said they're now donating those contributions to charity. Those of us that were around during the Enron days remember a lot of charities benefited from Enron money, and now some charities are going to benefit from FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried money.
Well, actually, it's funny that you mentioned the whole FTX thing, because one of the things I was going to bring up, so we'll just kind of go a little out of order, though, is that the lawsuits over the FTX, and there's a ton. I mean,
so many.
And with good reason, because, I mean, there were just thousands and thousands of people who had no control over their digital assets, right? Yeah. Lost crazy amounts of money. So lots and lots of lawsuits, and those lawsuits have actually been consolidated into a multi-district litigation.
Really?
Yeah, which is what we talk about here. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting because it's different. I mean, it's not like a product or a drug or something along those lines, but it's the same situation where you have all of these people who have a similar claim. I mean, they have the claim against FTX, and to handle all of these lawsuits all over the country in separate lawsuits would be really duplicative, wasteful. It's much more efficient to combine them all, put them all in front of one judge. I mean, they're going to be different. I mean, they're not all going to be like you were, had a heart attack because you took a particular drug. It's not going to be something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of the liability and the witnesses and really what happened and why it happened and who's responsible, that's all going to be similar, and they all will want that information.
Yeah.
But then the individual damages will be different. So I thought that was really interesting. I was like, hey, Ben will be interested to see this, that there's an MDL that he gets.
Yeah.
And you definitely...
Well, and it was crazy too because when all that was happening, I mean, there's a lot of my friends and peers that were using FTX as just an exchange like that. That's how they would hold their cryptocurrency. They would keep it in there. If they needed to transfer funds to their bank account, they would do it through there. And when that happened, it was like 2-3 days. I mean, literally like in a span of 48 hours, news started coming out that they were having money problems and they weren't going to be able to have like the reserve to back all of their customer funds. And within 48 hours, they froze everything. I mean, there's people with hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in USD, also cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Solana, Ethereum, whatever it is. And just within 48 hours, they have no access to it, completely frozen. And it's still frozen. And there's nothing that they can do about it. It's just like...
I suppose like the crash of Wall Street, that kind of thing. I mean, were people like jumping off of buildings or anything?
I mean, people were freaking out. People were freaking out.
I mean, like everything. I mean, people could lose almost everything.
Yeah, there was one of the guys that in Monkey DAO, he was posting on Twitter. He was like, the week after, he was like, I mean, I need to pay rent this month. I'm getting paid in cryptocurrency. I leave it in FTX so I can pull it out whenever I need it. Like, if this doesn't get figured out, I don't know how I'm going to pay rent.
Wow. Scary stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's crazy too, because with how public and how just everywhere they were, I mean, they were absolutely everywhere. I mean, like you said, some of the stars, Tom Brady, Steph Curry, endorsing them.
Some of the lawsuits are against the people endorsing them too now. I mean, there's all kinds of...
Because there's a feeling of when you see those type of figures endorsing, you're like, okay, this is legit.
Yeah, it gives you confidence.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they're basically saying, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all this actually started is because there was two companies that started out as Alameda Research, which was like the investment arm.
He was feeding the money into that.
Yeah. So Alameda would invest in these companies, give them, let's say, 10 million, 100 million at times, $100 million. And they'd say, here, we'll give you this to you guys can fund yourself. You can build this product for a certain amount of ownership, but we want you to keep your funds in FTX. Like, okay, fine, it works for us. So they would give them $100 million. They would put the $100 million back into FTX, and they wouldn't change their account numbers, but then they would just use that $100 million and reinvest it in other things. And so they were just double dipping.
Like a Ponzi kind of thing.
Yeah, wow. Very similarly, and just double dipping into everything, and then all of a sudden everything collapsed all at once.
Wow. And weren't you like at a in real life event when this happened? Or
that was when Breakpoint. I was in Portugal, and it was literally like the day that Breakpoint ended, where everyone, it had been like a full week of, maybe not partying, but on the verge of it. Like, there's a lot of parties going on. Yeah, it's like
celebrating this whole industry, and then all of a sudden it just crashes. I mean, it's like, you talk to these people for a full year, 2 years, you hang out with them, you talk to them every single day over Discord or work with them. And then you get this, once a year, twice a year event that you can actually hang out and talk to each other in person. And then, within the next day of when it all ends, this massive implosion happens and everyone's net worth goes down 50%. Some people lost all of their savings in FTX. I mean, it was just, It was insane. I mean, I was lucky enough. I never kept funds in there. I definitely used it, like if I needed to pull money out, but I would never keep funds in there. Yeah, I was actually going to ask how you had avoided...
Yeah, well, so you can have wallets where it's like cold storage, or it's just kind of on your browser, and you're the only one with access to it. But you can't pull that money out and put it into your bank account in that wallet.
No, it's not. Yeah, so
yeah,
not as accessible.
Yeah, so I would have it in my own wallet, and then whenever I wanted to pull money out and put it in my bank account, I would send it over to the exchange and then immediately pull it out. But a lot of people, it's not always, you can get hacked pretty easily as well if you just keep it in your own wallet. So a lot of people just thought it was safer.
Thought it was safer, and turned out not so much.
So it's insane. And things are kind of recovering. They're getting a little bit better now. But I mean, there's just been so many like massive implosions within cryptocurrency in the last year that has kind of resulted in this, kind of a bad taste in everyone's mouth when it comes to it. But yeah.
Well, and it kind of seemed like a lot of people, it was so exciting and it was like the thing for a long time. And then this happened, and it feels like a lot of people just turned and ran and got out and said, forget it. But you stuck with it.
Yeah, that's how it goes. It goes through cycles. There's bull markets and bear markets. Same thing with the stock market. And when things are good, they're fucking nuts. We saw Bitcoin go up, double in price from like 30K to 60K in a few months, where if you just own one Bitcoin, hold on to it, you can make 20, 30K in a few months. That's insane. Yeah. It's absurd. When I was trading Sol NFTs, I would buy something for $200 and sell it for $1,000 like a few hours later. It was like absurd.
Day trading kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like day trading, but it also messes with your mindset of money as well.
The value and how easy it is. Yeah. How easy it is to make it, but also how easy it is to lose it.
Oh yeah, 100%. I've lost a shit ton of money. In my head, it was just like, and not play money, but this is just kind of like, this is okay. It's just Sol. When you see a Sol, not necessarily in the USD value, you don't think of it in the same way. But, it goes through fluxes and it's a roller coaster. But as long as you get through the low parts and wait to the highs, then that's all that really matters.
Well, and you're pretty committed. You're in this, and now this big monkey mint, and so that's happening.
It's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then it's all going to be unrevealed when people buy it, and then they'll be able to reveal it July 3rd. And my birthday is July 4th, so it's kind of like an early birthday present for me.
Yeah, I was listening to, I think, on your Monkey Monday, and it was interesting because I didn't know how that was going to work. So you basically, you're buying the monkey, but you don't even know what it looks like. So you're buying blind, and then on July 3rd, you get to see it for the first time. So.
And it's interesting how it works in the market too, because it might sound kind of stupid to people. Is like, you don't know what you're buying, you can't even see it. Like, why are you buying? That doesn't make sense. But what ends up happening is when it's unrevealed, as long as it's not revealed for too long, right? Like a month is absurd. Ours, it's going to be...
You have to be very patient.
Yeah, ours is going to be like over a week and about 4 or 5 days. But you see like people's excitement and their imagination start
anticipation
going crazy. Yeah, exactly.
What will my monkey be like? And
they see these pictures of like the most rare ones, right? Like the ones that look insane. And every time you buy one of the unrevealed ones, you're like, oh, this one
could be it. This is it.
This could be the one that's going to be like absolutely insane. And you see, and it reflects in the price too. When it's unrevealed, it's much more expensive than when it's revealed.
Well, so they're not all the same price?
When we're selling them, they are. But when they're all sold out and everything, people are able to resell them.
But not before they get revealed.
No, they can.
Oh, they can Okay, so you get the monkey. You don't know what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a girl. If it's a boy. You don't know if it has. What are all they have glasses and crowns and earrings,
hoodies, yeah.
Okay, so you don't know any of those things, but you get it, and then you can resell it, but you have no idea how much to sell it for. I guess it's just what the market is.
Yeah, and so that's something that's also fun to watch. So we set our prices for what we're looking to get out of it, and you have to be very careful with it because there's only a certain amount that people are willing to pay and that the market will accept. But usually once it completely sells out, then secondary opens up, so people can actually trade them and sell them, and they're all unrevealed. And they will be unrevealed until July 3rd, and you don't even have to reveal it. Like I know people are just going to
keep it undercover.
They're just going to keep it a barrel. It's called a barrel because it's like barrel monkeys.
So the barrel doesn't just like disappear. You have to open the barrel.
Yeah, you got to smash the barrel, crack it open. Yeah.
Oh, this is kind of. I'm starting to want a monkey.
Yeah, it is kind of. That's what we're going for. Is like an exciting experience. And so there will be trading of the barrels, and the market decides the price, and you'll see it as like someone lists something for 20 sol, it'll sell instantly. So the next person puts it as 30. Maybe it takes 5 minutes to sell, so the next person puts it at 33. And then, as it goes, supply and demand figures out, kind of that levels out at that point where people are willing to buy it. Some people aren't willing to. And as they get revealed, some are rare, some aren't rare. And then the market also decides how much each rarity or each attribute is worth.
Okay. So you're going to be super busy and stressed next week. So we won't be actually recording, but I'll be interested to hear how it all went when we get back to it.
I'll be excited to give an update. Fernie actually had a great idea of doing some highlights of the podcast.
Oh, for next week, yeah.
Yeah, for next week, which, I don't think it's going to be a full hour or anything like that, but
it'll just be fun.
Yeah, I know for me personally, like there's a lot of podcasts that I've watched, and I won't watch the entire thing, but if I, think it's interesting, I might look up some highlights to see if it's something I would be interested in.
Yeah. All right. So we will be releasing. It just won't be totally new stuff. So, yeah. All right. And then one other thing I know that's coming up for you is a little anniversary happening.
Yeah. That's tomorrow, 2-year anniversary.
Woo, 2 years. All right. Shout out to Christina, another monkey.
Yes.
Yeah, another monkey holder, I should say.
She's been coming with me to all of the crypto events, which she's an absolute trooper for, because the crowd there is not always the most fun or socially aware.
Yeah, they're not all like Benjamin here.
Nah, they're not as handsome or charming. It's okay. It's all right.
Social butterfly. Yeah, well, that's cool. Well, anyway, I'm excited for you guys to do something fun and exciting. We might have to have a report on that as well. So.
We'll see.
Yeah, all right. Whatever you can report to your mom.
Yeah.
All right. So what's happening? So some fun stuff in the news. We always like to do that.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, we'll start off with some things that aren't controversial and won't get people all worked up yet. Or I might. Actually, this might. So, and we're big dog fans here. And so another case of dogs in the news. And you know how they have canine, they're like drug dogs, drug sniffing dogs. And so they've always considered that like dogs are impartial, right? I mean, they sniff drugs or they don't sniff drugs.
Yeah.
And so if a dog, and I don't know if you've gone through any of these checkpoints.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the airport, too. And it's always terrifying. Right. Even if you don't have anything on you, you're like, holy fuck, what if? What if there's some remnants of it or something like that,
Yeah, exactly.
You get a little nervous.
Alert. Yeah. Well, and then down in Sonoyta, of course, we drive through the Border Patrol all the time, and they always have it says working dogs. And of course, if our dogs are in the car, they just lose their shit, and they're clearly not working dogs. They are. Anyway, but so it's interesting because what happens is, in these situations, the police officers walk the dogs around the cars, and there was a lawsuit recently, and I guess there have been a number of lawsuits on this, but there was a lawsuit recently where the guy said that he believed that the police officer pulled him over under false pretenses and then asked if he could search the car, and the guy declined. And so then he walked the dog around, and the dog alerted to there being drugs. And anyway, they searched the vehicle. There were no drugs, but the guy really felt like he had been harassed. And so he filed a lawsuit. And as part of the discovery, they got the body cam. So you know how the cops have to wear the body cameras. Well, when they watched the video, they saw the cop point to the car with the dog. He made a gesture that was basically telling the dog to alert.
Wow.
Yeah. And so now they're saying that in any of these cases where the dog's alert, I mean, you might want to appeal these. You might want to take a look at this. If you get the body cams, it may be that these police officers are kind of manipulating the dogs or encouraging the dogs. And of course, the dogs obviously want to do what their trainers are telling them to do, and they don't give a shit.
I mean, they don't know better, right? Like their entire thing is to do their job, and that's their boss.
Yeah, and if the boss says, and then of course a part of the damages was that the car was all scratched up. Which I could relate to, having nutso dogs. There's a lot of things.
So would that be considered an illegal search and seizure?
Yeah. And then they were talking about one case where they said that, what was it? Oh, that the dog had broken entered as far as because it had touched the vehicle before it had alerted to drugs. And there's all of these, the very, very clear steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And a dog is considered essentially like a police officer, right?
I think they are. They're highly trained, and I mean they have.
Well, I was thinking in like legal terms too, because I'm pretty sure if you like kill a dog, like a canine dog that's trained or is like working under the police, it's almost as if. I guess it's not homicide.
No, it's not going to be homicide, but I mean, I know that there's definitely a crime there. I'm curious about that. I have to take a look at it because I don't know. I mean, quite frankly, I think that, killing a dog is right up there with people. Sometimes
100% agree.
Yeah, sometimes worse depending on the people.
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree.
That should be controversial, shouldn't it? Bring it on.
Well, I was curious because are they held to the same expectations of the police officer? Like you said, like illegal entry if the dog is like searching or like jumping up or whatever it is. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I think they actually think that they're less biased, less prejudiced, that they're saying that the dogs are totally neutral.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I mean, they don't know, and they can't be like racist or something. They don't know who. I mean, I guess some dogs could be. Who knows? I don't know.
Depends on which cops training them, I guess.
well, yeah. So exactly. So the dog itself, but the dog, of course, they're very sensitive, and so they're going to sense their handler, what they're feeling, and they're reacting, and if they're making some sort of motion to encourage one behavior or another, the dog's going to go along with it. Yeah. So it's really just like an extension of that handler, I think, or that officer.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, it was really fascinating. I had just never really thought about that before. And I guess it's a relatively new thing that they're now looking at these body cams to really see what's going on and how neutral or not neutral it is.
It always is interesting seeing videos of the body cams as well.
God, yeah.
I mean, especially when you see like the extreme cases of like shootouts or just crazy stuff going on, because I mean, you can imagine it or you can hear about the story, but seeing it in real time and from the perspective of the police officer is pretty crazy. And also with just the abuse that goes on too. I mean.
Oh, well, that part's horrible, definitely. But I mean, it's interesting because when you see that, you always hear these stories, and and it's just like these split-second decisions, and a lot of people then afterwards question, did the police officer do the right thing?
Yeah.
But I mean, when you actually watch the video cam and it's real time, I mean, you realize just how terrifying something is. And I mean, I don't care how much training you have. I mean, who knows how you're going to respond in a particular situation? And so many people are never involved in, say, like a shootout, or have to discharge their weapon in the course of their duty. And then when they do, it's who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's there's two sides to it. I remember, I forgot who was telling me, Eric, one of the family friends who's a police officer, he was talking about how, whenever you pull someone over, you kind of have to have the mentality of this is a life or death situation, because anything can turn into a life or death situation on a moment's notice.
Right.
But then you also see situations where things just get blown out of proportion, and even when you do watch the video, it's like this doesn't really feel like it makes sense. And I, in my opinion, I feel like that kind of connects to the lack of discipline there is within the police world. You see these cases of very clear misconduct from police officers, and they get put on leave for a month, or they get fired, but then they get rehired at the next town over. And whatever it may be. So
sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen.
I mean, it happens. It happens all the time. I mean, there's this. It's kind of like what we were talking about last week with like the fraternity and brotherhood. Like there is a brotherhood within the police world, and having each other's back, not ratting each other out. All of those things, which. I get it to a certain extent, but at the same time, should that exist in Law and Order. I don't know.
Well, I think, and think how much things have changed since they did institute the body cams, because before that it's, he said, she said, or he said, or whatever. And there was no proof one way or the other. And so, and then there are many, many wonderful law enforcement officers, but there are also some people who go into that line of work because they're kind of power hungry and, that sort of thing. And so you get some bad apples in there, and they can do a lot of damage. And if there's no accountability, no evidence there.
And the worst stories that we hear about are the police officers that, act out, or like there is something terrible that happened. I mean, like George Floyd, right? Like that was everywhere. But you never hear about the good stories about the cops doing the good things.
Oh, you do hear some. You do hear the good stories
here and there, but they're not blown out of proportion. Not blown out of proportion, but they're not focused on as much.
Yeah. I mean, that is unfortunate for sure. So
that's interesting, though. That's interesting.
Yeah. Police dogs. I don't know. Maybe Bauer and Eva need to be trained.
I don't think those dogs are trainable. Not in that fashion.
They're probably not. All right. So another kind of interesting thing in the news this week was what I call the Whippet accident. And there was a case just this month involving, actually it was a car accident that resulted in a death. And one of the drivers had inhaled this dust-off product. Mm-hmm. So it's a compressed gas. And basically, it's the gas that it's called Whippet. So it's this DFE stuff, and so it's the stuff that people inhale whipped cream cans, and then I think you can actually buy little Whippet canisters and that kind of stuff, and so it gives you like this head rush. And I will just say that when I was growing up, my grandmother used to get really pissed off at me because whenever, it was like Thanksgiving or whatever, we'd have whipped cream. And so, I would get into the refrigerator, inhale all the gas out of it, and then she'd go to like put whipped cream on and nothing would come out. And she'd be like, Sarah! I go, maybe you just need to, but I don't think they sold like little canisters of it. And I don't know. It's kind of like one of those not childhood, but teenage things. Yeah. You just like,
a little degenerate,
I was a little degenerate back in the day.
Nothing wrong with that. I've heard of those, and I've had a few friends that have done it, and they've always seemed just like really gross to me. The Whippets, and especially in the little canisters, and you get the machine that's actually meant for it.
There's like a machine.
Well, it's not like a machine, but it's essentially like it's like a canister that you load up with the little things, and then that's what they use. But Stevo from Jackass, he was a massive Whippet addict. Like that would be, he was an addict with like a bunch of stuff, but Whippets was like the biggest problem that he had, and that's one of the reasons his voice sounds so raspy, is because he abused it for so long. And there's a full documentary, but like a part of it was how they would walk in and it would just be littered with the little silver canisters of Whippets.
But it doesn't last very long.
No, it doesn't. But that's why it's abused so long, because it's like, it's like a head high that's for like a few minutes, but then they just keep on sending it.
So, and I'm wondering now, and I probably should have looked this up before, but is that similar to like the nitrous oxide, like that for dentists? That stuff is pretty amazing. I use it when I get my teeth cleaned. I'm just going to be honest here. Not that teeth cleaning is that, much torment or anything, but it's just kind of like fun. I'm like, instead of dreading going to the dentist, I'm like, ooh, cool. I put my, my earphones in, and I, kind of rock out, and the next thing I know, I've got, glistening, sparkly, beautiful teeth. And then they just turn it off and give you some oxygen, and you're like good as gold. You're totally...
Yeah,
no hangover, no nothing.
I'm not a big fan of the dentist, but I'm right with you. If you can get a little buzz while you're getting your teeth, why not? Why not?
I will admit I get my teeth cleaned every 3 times a year instead of twice a year. So it might have something to do with that. Anyway, so back to the legal part of this. I know we digress. But anyway, so what happened was this guy had used this dust-off compressed gas. And this is like for cleaning computers and stuff, right? But it has a really high level of this DFE. And so he had inhaled it, and then he was driving and caused this accident, which killed somebody. And as as per usual, the driver may not have enough insurance, and so they're looking for other defendants. And so they actually sued the manufacturer of this dust-off. It's called Falcon Safety Products, and Walmart, where they bought it.
Wow.
And so they said that basically, that this stuff is abused, and that their product, as opposed to some other, dust-off type of products, had a really high level of it.
No.
And so, if somebody was going to buy one of these things to get high, they're going to choose that one. That it's going to get abused. And then they said that Walmart knew, and so the lawsuit, then brought the company and Walmart in as well as additional defendants.
That doesn't really make sense to me. I feel like in that case, when there's a DUI accident and the guy doesn't have enough insurance and he just happened to be drinking Jack Daniels that night, are they going to be suing Jack Daniels or the corner liquor store that he bought it from?
Well, interesting. And in fact, one of the things I had to talk about in the future, I had made it jotted down, was talking about dram shop cases, which are lawsuits where you oftentimes do bring in the bar that served or overserved somebody, or the store where they bought it. Suing the liquor companies themselves is a lot more problematic. But if you have a liquor license, either to sell in a store or in a bar, and you sell it to somebody who's already intoxicated, or you sell it to a minor or something along those lines. Now, if somebody's completely sober and they buy it, at 2 p.m, and then at night they get wasted and kill somebody, that's a whole different thing. You're not going to get liability there. But if somebody's staggering into Circle K, barely, and they sell them, a bottle of liquor, that's a little more problematic. So it could be similar. So it is similar to that. Now, this is a situation where they basically they didn't dismiss it. So initially, the Falcon and Walmart wanted the whole case to get dismissed, and the judge said, no, we're going to let this move forward. We'll see what happens as the evidence comes in. Yeah. But they didn't just say, forget it, you don't have a case. And it was kind of an interesting thing. Yeah. And of course, it caught my attention because it involves Whippets. And like I said, it's been a while, but back in high school, those whipped cream canisters had a certain allure for.
Did it give you nostalgia? Good old days.
I was like, and I know I kind of went to the kitchen. I was like, do we have any whipped cream?
I want to check the fridge real quick. Huh?
We don't. But
is this
I don't know.
As good as I remember it.
Yeah, but see, now I'd be like more practical. I'm like, well, but if I do that, then we're not going to be able to put whipped cream on the pumpkin pie.
Yeah, you have your priorities
Practicality, yes. I have grown up. I am more mature.
So that's interesting. And then it's ongoing. I'm assuming that they haven't obviously decided if there's any fault there.
Right. Well, it hasn't gone to a jury or to a trial yet, but they wanted to just dismiss it outright and say, this is a stupid case. It's not even going to get to a jury. And they said, no, we're going to let this go and see where this, it's going to be very case specific. What information did they have? Yeah. Did they kind of knowingly make it that way because they sold more of it because people were abusing it? Yeah. Or did they have no idea? That kind of information as that comes out would is going to make a big difference, I think.
And does that play into what we talked about a few weeks ago with like what the reasonable person would do?
Yeah, absolutely. And so foreseeable misuse. So you make a product and then somebody does something stupid with it. And we talked about those vacuum cleaners, but is it foreseeable that somebody would do that? And so that's going to be the question here too. Is it foreseeable that the way that you made this product that people will misuse it? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I see these things all kind of tie together.
They do. And I think, if they did have that in mind where they knew they had more of that chemical and that it was more likely to get abused and they left it in there because they knew that, they're going to get more sales. It doesn't necessarily help with cleaning the computer extra.
Right.
That kind of makes sense there.
Yeah.
The Walmart thing, I don't know about
Yeah, like Walmart has to know. That one, this seems like a bit more of a reach. So we'll see if they may get out. But
and so they could, in that case, they could say, okay, we'll hold the air duster company responsible, but Walmart, you're good to go.
Well, they can. And in any case, and different states have different laws about this. But like, for example, in Arizona, it's comparative negligence. So, there's 100% of fault, but it could get divided up between multiple people. Yeah. And they may say that the guy who inhaled the shit, is like 85%, but then we're going to put, 10% here and 5% here. So it gets divided up.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I mean, it could, but it could be that, this person has 0%, and we don't see that, Walmart had any reason to think that this was a product that they were selling that was going to be abused, but the other company did. So.
I mean, Walmart's like a one-stop shop for everything. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in there you could abuse.
Well, I'm sure they must have a lot of lawyers on staff, because I'm sure they're getting slammed right and left.
For sure.
Yeah, so.
All right, what else we got for this week?
Well, let's see, another quickie kind of amusing one. And some of these things, like, they grab my attention because they remind me of cases I've had in the past. And this is one. So Ashley Furniture has recalled some of their powered furniture items. So like the loungers, and, back in the old days, there was like the Lazy Boy or whatever, but now everything's high tech. They have phone chargers, they have like LED lighting. So when you're, hanging out and chilling and watching Netflix and all, got these like running lights, and it looks fancy.
It's good vibes.
Well, apparently, but it's also dangerous. And so they've recalled some of these loungers because the cup holder with the LED lighting overheats and can catch fire. Yeah, so here you are lounging in your lounger, and the next thing you know, you're, in flames.
In flames, fully engulfed.
Well, I mean, it's causing fire.
I know a lot of people, including myself, I've passed out in one of those as well. Especially with
turn it off.
the soothing lights around you, the LED, turn off the lights, and you're just kind of vibing up. You're vibing. And you fall asleep, and all of a sudden you wake up to burning flesh.
Well, that would be bad. So they are recalling these, and they are, there's a number of different models, but you can check that out. The Consumer Product Safety Commission has recalled them. But there are products that were sold in stores and online between November of 2018 and March of 2023. So if you have an Ashley lounger with LED lighting, you might want to go online and check out and make sure that that yours is not one of these potentially dangerous ones. They're saying if you do have that, unplug it immediately and contact them. They will repair it or replace it. So that's a little scary. And it actually reminded me of back in the day, one of my very first job when I was doing defense work. We had some cases that involved lazy boys. And this is back, there was certainly no LEDs and no phones to plug in. This is pre-cell phone or anything like that. But what would happen is that in these lazy boys, people kind of getting up, they weren't balanced really well. And when they were trying to get up and get out of them, they would sometimes tip over. Mm-hmm. And people were getting their arms and legs caught in the gears.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and then I was thinking too, we had two cases involving those that we were defending. But I was thinking at the time, wow, because like now if that happened, here you've got your phone charging there, you could call somebody. Back in the day, there was no cell phones. I mean, you're now stuck in the lazy boy lying on the floor with your arm or your leg in the gears, just waiting for somebody to come rescue you. Yeah,
and best case, you pull it out, you go to grab some quarters and run to the local payphone.
Well, you probably have a phone in your house. I mean, I'm just saying, like,
you gotta send a letter to the ambulance. Hey guys, please, someone help.
All right, you're getting a little dramatic here. It's like back in the Stone Ages or something like that. But anyway, it was just interesting because it made me think of those old lazy boy cases.
Yeah, that's something that I think is pretty frustrating, especially with the lazy boy. Like, that's something you wouldn't even imagine having any issues, and it's meant for relaxing, luxury, enjoying yourself, and first of all, there being a risk of that is frustrating. But then, if you already have one of those that's a heavy, the big thing. If you need to switch it out, that's that's a bitch to take out and put a new one in. I mean,
well, presumably that they're going to handle that. They're either going to repair it, or I'm sure they'll send out a repair person or replace it.
You gotta open that time in your schedule, just dealing with it. And I mean, it's better that than waking up engulfed in flames for sure.
I think it's better than that. Yeah, and from somebody who works from home, it doesn't seem like this would be such a dramatic situation. Well, we are, let's see, I have a couple of things here, but I think we're going to move on. We spent a lot of time chit-chatting at the beginning but interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe we go ahead and talk about the main subject, which are the bear hugger lawsuits that we are handling. And actually, we've been handling these things forever, it feels like, which actually I guess is 2015, which is not forever, but 8 years. That's a long time. That's a long time. Well, and these cases have gone through a real mess. But before I get into that, just kind of what it is. The Bair Hugger is a surgical warming device, and so when people are undergoing surgery, they keep the operating rooms like super cold.
Yeah.
And part of that is they have this what they call laminar airflow, but they have this cool air from the ceiling kind of coming down and pushing everything down to the ground. And the intent of that is to keep the surgical site clean, sterile, all of that. And like when the surgeons and all of the staff come in, I mean, they're completely sanitized. But of course they come in, they've got their shoes on.
Yeah.
So the only place that's dirty is going to be the floor area. Anyway, so with certain types of surgeries, the outcome is better if the body doesn't get too cold. So, and there are different ways that you can keep somebody warm. I mean, from like to warm blankets. But this company, 3M, actually another big 3M case, has this product called the Bair Hugger, and it's a warming device. And basically, it's this blanket that has little holes in it. And it's attached to a machine that sits on the floor, and there's a tube that shoots hot air up into the blanket, and then through the little holes, this hot air goes onto the person's body. The problem with that is that the hot air then is going onto the body and overflowing down over the sides of the table, hitting the floor. Now hot air rises, so it's picking up the bacteria, the debris that's on the floor, and that can then rise back up with the hot air rising, and then it's into that surgical area. So what's happening is that when you use this, the rates of infections, surgical infections, have just skyrocketed. I mean, you can look at the studies of when they started using this, and about 90% of hospitals now use it. I mean, they have great marketing. So, and a surgical infection can be relatively minor and can be treated with antibiotics. However, certain types of surgeries like joint replacements.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when you're putting a metal joint into the body, if that gets infected, it's really horrendous.
Yeah, I bet. And it's just so insane how that happens too. Is that the warm air goes into the blanket, and since hot air falls, right, it goes down to the ground, gets all of that bacteria that's on the ground, and then slowly rises back up and just just gets in there. Gets into
Yeah. And I mean, so what it does is it disrupts that cold air that's trying to keep everything down. When it's the hot air, it's bringing it back up. And so the problem then is that, people are getting these really bad infections, and it's so hard to get rid of an infection when it's settled into an artificial joint. And so a lot of times people will have to have like IV antibiotics. They'll have to have wound vacs. They oftentimes will have to actually take the prosthesis out and leave like a spacer in there for a while, so like they don't have a joint for a while until it clears up, then replace it. People have had amputations, a number of deaths, because again, they get this horrible infection they can't control. They go septic and they die.
I didn't even know you could do that, a spacer in the joint, so someone just doesn't even have a joint for a week.
Well, they have to take it out, but they can't put a new one in until the infection's cleared, because you put another one in, well, you're going to have the same situation. Yeah, I mean, I've had lots of clients who have been through this, and just it's horrendous. I mean, you're pretty much bedridden.
Oh, 100%.
Or lazy boy ridden, or an Ashley recliner ridden.
God forbid it catches on fire. You don't even have a joint to get out.
You can't even move. See? Crazy shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so these cases were consolidated back in 2015, and there were about 5,000 of them at the time. And then a lot of, some of these cases go really smoothly, and some of them do not go so smoothly. This would be the latter. And so these were in litigation, thousands of cases filed, discovery going on. And then in 2019, the judge basically dismissed all of the lawsuits what she did is she kicked out all of the experts and said, she disqualified all of the experts. And so without any experts, she then dismissed all of the cases.
Why did she get rid of all the experts?
Well, there was everybody filed their motions, and there's always a question as to whether, the science is there, whether it's a valid connection between the product and the problems and whether you can establish that. And she basically didn't buy these experts, said they were not qualified, therefore there were no experts, bam, the cases are gone.
Jeez. I mean, to be fair, it is like an insane thing to think about, right? It's like the hot air going down, bringing it back up, and how you even figure that out. It's like you see the infection, but to assume that has anything to do with the heating blanket on them, and especially that type of interaction is happening, it is pretty insane to think about. But to just dismiss all these experts.
And on her own, because I mean, basically what most judges do is they say, well, we're going to let the jury see, because, and again, both sides had experts, and there were some really fascinating like videos where they used like this green smoke, and so that it was like this colored green smoke that you could see going in the blanket, and you could see exactly where it was going and how it was coming back up, and you could see it where the surgeon's hands were and that sort of thing. So those kinds of things. And then on top of that, this was a crazy thing too, because the inventor of the product he ended up selling it to another company, and then ultimately 3M bought it. But he ended up coming out and saying, I invented this, but you shouldn't use this for certain things, and you should not use it for artificial joints. Yeah. And so you've got now the inventor as an expert on our side. But then, of course, they're saying, well, he's biased, and he has a new product called the hot dog, and he wants to sell that instead of the bear hugger.
Is it also like a warming blanket?
Well, it wasn't blowing,
I love that name, the hot dog.
I know, I liked it too.
It sounds comfortable, like you're just sitting between two buns. Nice and warm and cozy.
Exactly.
This guy's good at his
I know, the bear hugger was all cute, and it's like a bear hugging somebody. So anyway, so she dismissed them, but then it got appealed, and in 2022, the Court of Appeals reversed and said, whoa, she cannot do that. And they were pretty nasty to her. I mean, it was bad.
Yeah, so, and it is pretty insane that she did that solo.
Everybody was outraged. It was like freaking out. Like, how in the hell?
It just smells a little corruption-y.
Well, interesting you should say that. So then they all got reinstated back in 2022. Litigation's back. People are filing cases again. And of course, 3M petitioned the Supreme Court to see if they would hear it. The Supreme Court denied certiorari, which says we're not going to touch it. You're stuck with what the Eighth Circuit did. So now we're back, and that was in May of 2023. So this is all kind of recent stuff. But now recently what's happened is our side, the plaintiff side, has actually filed a motion to disqualify both the judge, so her name's Judge Erickson, and also she had retained, I'm blanking on the term now, but basically the settlement judge who was involved, the magistrate judge. And so it turns out that the magistrate judge had purchased some interest in 3M, so potentially had some bias there. And then with the trial judge, they are saying that she secretly retained a retired defense attorney to advise her when she was deciding about the cases. And so they're now saying, so basically the cases are back to her to go to trial, but nobody wants to take them back to trial with her because look what she did last time.
How does they even go back to her? Like, how's that okay?
Well, that's how it always happens when it's appealed. They say, okay, judge, you screwed up. Go fix it. Go do it again. But don't, let in this case, the experts get to go, start back where you were back in 2019.
But you are, I feel like the judge already has, in order to dismiss it the first time, she already has this perspective.
Strong feelings.
Some strong feelings. Like, how does it ever make sense to send it back to that original person that already feels a certain way?
Well, I mean, the judges are supposed to be unbiased, and they may have to set aside any personal feelings that they have. I'm just saying that's what's supposed to happen. Yeah. But the reason these motions are being filed is that people don't feel like this judge can or will do that.
Yeah.
And basically, why the heck go to trial again when we know that she's against it?
Yeah.
And the judge makes so many decisions through the whole process. I mean, every single objection, every single, there's so many ways that the judge is rulings affect the case. So that's where it is right now, is that there has been this motion to disqualify. Now, it's a little more complicated even than that, because she's getting ready to retire anyway. So it kind of makes sense that, a huge MDL like this is not what she wants to be doing right now anyway. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen. Well, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. But these cases are very active. A lot more cases are getting filed because this thing's still being used.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned 90% of hospitals, but I do want to touch on, because you said that the Court of Appeals were saying some nasty stuff about her.
Yeah.
What were they saying? I'm curious.
Well, they just basically, I mean, they didn't like call her names or something
you big
like
dumb idiot. What the hell are you doing over here?
It was close to that. I mean, it was very strong language about how outrageous it was.
Oh,
I mean,
my
yeah.
God.
I mean, you don't usually see it that strong. It was some juicy stuff, for sure.
No. And I'm sure the prosecution side of it is like, thank God they see this,
Right. Well, I mean, everybody was just so outraged. But anyway, so these cases are very active. And basically, it's the cases are anybody who has had a joint replacement surgery. A lot of times it's the hips and knees, and this product was probably used. You would not necessarily know it, but the anesthesiologist is the one who applies this. And so it would be in the anesthesia records. Those are records we can obtain. But if somebody has had a joint replacement surgery, had a bad infection following it, potentially they would have a case. At this point, these things are going to go forward because the Supreme Court doesn't want it. Yeah. And so it's pretty interesting. People are pretty excited about these again, and there are a lot of them. But it's happening now. So.
And so you guys are, I'm assuming we're just looking for individuals that have had any type of joint replacement, and then it's of interest to look and see if Bair Hugger was used, or is it only joint replacements that they had some type of infection afterwards?
Well, you have to have some damages. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, you have to have suffered from an infection. And again, if it's just a really minor soft tissue infection that gets treated with, 10 days of antibiotics, I mean, that's not worth pursuing a case. Yeah. But if it was a significant infection, if you needed to go on IV antibiotics, if you had to have a revision surgery, any of the serious problems, then it's definitely worth finding out if that product was used. A good chance that caused or contributed to the problem.
And I'm curious, how the conversation happened with the patient and doctor afterwards, because you have this joint replacement. And in some of these cases, it is absolutely terrible where you're having the joint actually taken out again. How is that? Doc, what's going on? Why is this infection so terrible? Is this common? Does this happen a lot?
Well, so that's a really good question. And the reality is that surgical infections do happen, and that is a risk of any surgery. And so when you're, signing, when the doctor's talking to you about the risks, they always will say it's a potential that you're going to have an infection. Yeah. But again, how serious is the infection, and the likelihood of a serious infection is certainly much higher if this product was used. And some doctors now don't use it any longer. They will not do the surgeries with it because they understand this. They agree with it. There are plenty of surgeons, anesthesiologists who say, this is a bunch of bullshit, we're going to use it. I know that, over the many years now that I've been involved in these cases, a number of friends have had surgeries, and they have always told the doctor going in, I do not want that used, because they know about that. Yeah. And so the doctors have not used it. And I mean, you can use warm blankets, you can, there are other things that you can do. And again, we could get into the weeds a lot, but obviously I don't think we want to do that. But there's also a question about how long the surgery really requires warming. And a lot of these surgeries are pretty quick and don't. So, it's not necessarily the case that somebody has to be, they certainly don't have to be warmed with this product. There are other ways.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask, if there are other products, and it sounds like there is. But you also mentioned earlier that it's still being used in a lot of hospitals.
Yeah, it's being used a lot. And so, new cases are coming up all the time because it's it's still being used, and people are getting these horrible infections. And, for a long time, we couldn't take these, we weren't taking these cases because it looked like it might have been completely over. But they have been revived. Not going to go anywhere at this point. Looks like these will be going to trial coming up.
Hopefully with a new judge.
Well, hopefully with a new judge, absolutely. And like I said, I don't think she wants to do it. Well, we don't want her to do it. So hopefully we just move on and everybody's happy.
You mentioned that she hired behind closed doors a personal defense attorney to advise her. What is it?
This is the allegation.
Allegation.
The allegation.
Yeah,
yes.
But what does that mean? Like, what was advising her that she should drop it? It was a defense attorney from the defense side of the case?
Well, not from the particular case, but somebody who had, was more aligned with that side, who was looking at these expert witnesses and kind of advising her on kind of the basis maybe for excluding them, or at least giving her his opinion. And that's not something that a judge should be doing.
I was going to ask, is that common for judges
I hope not. No, they're going to get in trouble.
Yeah, that's insane. And I'm glad that the Court of Appeals chewed her out on that. I mean,
everybody was pretty glad about that.
I almost want to see the transcript of what they said.
I will pull that because it just like the little parts of it. But yeah, there was during one of the AAJ meetings, we kind of read through some of it, and there were some kind of highlights. So I'll pull that. I mean, it's public record, and I have it. And
I mean, especially in that judge's position where you have hundreds of attorneys, thousands and thousands of victims of the case seeing this and hearing about it, like that has to be terrible to be ridiculed in front of that many people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the people don't really get it, and and again, it's not like calling names, but I mean, it's from an attorney's perspective, it's like, ooh, that's smart. Ow.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah.
Damn.
So.
Well, it's good that it's back. And
it's back, and it's alive and moving forward. So.
And anyone that's had any type of infection after surgery, it's worth reaching out.
Absolutely. And like I said, you wouldn't necessarily know if it was used, but it's pretty quick and easy to be able to get the documentation to determine that. We do that regularly. We will order those records and let you know, if you do have a qualified case.
And generally, the severe cases happen with joint replacement, but it's possible for it to happen with other types
Yeah. But I mean, it's really a bad idea to use it with when you put a foreign body in, that's where the infection just kind of seizes and settles in there, and you can't get it out without taking that out of the body. And then like we said, I mean, you're gonna have to be jointless for a while. So
I mean, joint replacement surgery in general has always been such a terrifying idea in my head. I mean,
it's pretty miraculous, though. I mean, the results are so good. And I mean, I know a number of people who have had it. And I mean, it's just like, people are having such a hard time walking. And then, they get their lives back. I mean, they can play sports, they can, do all kinds of things. So it's super, when it's successful, it's just life-changing and a great surgery. But, again, things can go wrong, and you want to do everything to avoid it, and avoiding using this product is going to give you better odds of a good outcome.
Yeah. I know one of the Kardashians, the Kardashian mom, I don't know her name.
Chris,
yes. Kris Kardashian, she got hip replacement.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, apparently she did okay. I haven't heard any big craziness about it.
Probably didn't use Bair Hugger.
I don't know. Hopefully not.
Her doctors are good enough to know.
Yeah. Well, we are actually running a little long this time. I don't know.
Yeah, we can start closing out here. Is there any last topics you kind of wanted to cover?
A couple of questions, but we can hit on those next time. I guess one of them I just kind of wanted to touch on briefly because we got such a response to the whole Tesla story. And I was just kind of shocked and surprised because I was a little bit nervous about it just because, it was talking about racial discrimination. And I certainly didn't want it to come off in any way that would, indicate that we were at all racist, God forbid, but that wasn't even at all. I mean, and the clips that we had, were certainly clear that that was not the situation. But people just like kind of lost their shit over this. And I mean, so many people were just like saying that we were lying and, and I'm like, well, I'm not sure what we're lying about. I mean, all we're doing is we're talking about the fact that this lawsuit, that there was a successful lawsuit, that the jury did find that there was racial discrimination on the production floor. They did award the guy money. There is another lawsuit. So, again, it's not like we're making this stuff up. It's public record. And we didn't really even express any strong opinions about the lawsuit. But a lot of people think like, oh, my gosh, we're attacking Elon Musk. Not so much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have any feelings towards Tesla or Elon Musk.
No, I think they're cool cars. I mean, I'm not buying one simply because I'm not ready for the whole electric thing. But, I mean, I think they're pretty, there are some issues, but there are issues with lots of cars.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything against Elon Musk. I feel like, if anything, I like Elon Musk. I like his innovative ways. He's pumped cryptocurrency before. There's a little bit where he replaced the Twitter icon with Dogecoin. Dogecoin
that's
icon.
Right.
Made some money off that one. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason for us to have any like feeling one way or the other. It's just kind of staying that it exists. I bet you the people that are really upset about it and thinking that we are somehow trying to diminish the name of Tesla, probably Tesla owners.
Maybe stockholders. I don't know. Or we're not. I mean, the fact is there was this lawsuit, whatever you feel about it. But then there were like comments too about just saying that that's just how people behave in work environments. I'm like, well, not cool and not legal.
Yeah.
So
I don't think I've ever called anyone monkey toes when I'm working at
Well, I certainly hope not. No. And if you do, expect to be sued. And then expect us to talk about the fact that you were sued.
Yeah, I mean,
anyway.
That's just like some insanely derogatory terms you can't really pass off as just like, oh, just boys being boys at the factory.
Yeah.
It's pretty insane stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought it was kind of interesting because, man, there was like a lot of action on that, and just people getting so worked up and so pissed off, and pissed off at us, And again, I mean, I don't mind people being pissed off at me. It's all good, Any publicity is good publicity or something like that. But it was just funny because, I mean, lying about it, well, not really. Google it. There really is a case out there, and you may have your feelings one way or the other about it, but it is what it is, and.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I guess that's just the nature of this thing we do, this podcast. It's going to get people worked up sometimes.
Well, I just think law topics in general, and especially when you start touching on, like we do the weekly updates on cases or interesting cases on the news. Yeah. And a lot of the interesting stuff is the stuff people are the most familiar with. And, a lot of it's stuff they don't want to hear. But
we're going to keep saying it. We're going to keep talking about it. So go ahead, blow up our Facebook. It's all right.
If you want, the filtered and the safe news, the fake news, go ahead and watch the local news station.
That's not what you're going to get on prioritizing profit.
Prioritize profit. You can get the cold hard facts.
Yeah, pisses you off. It may, but that's okay. Yeah. Let us know. We'll be happy to talk about it on the next one.
Speaking of the next one, I think we are closing out here. What topics are we looking at? Like we said earlier in the show, we won't be filming next week. We will have some content coming out, but for the next show after that, or I guess the next show that we'll be posting, what do we have to look forward to?
Well, a couple of things. Obviously, whatever juicy things happen in the news that might, get people worked up between now and then, we'll be sure to pick those out and highlight them. But probably on our topic, there's another hernia mesh lawsuit, the Covidian one. So I'll probably talk a little bit about that. And then also just really interesting, the whole Ozempic, that people are using it as a weight loss and a diabetes drug. And so there are some lawsuits now against the company manufacturing Ozempic because it's causing some major gallbladder issues. Yeah. So we'll probably touch on that as well because that's interesting. A lot of people are using it.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff about Hollywood actresses and actors using it. Yeah. For weight loss. So yeah, I'm interested to get into that one.
Yeah, so we'll have some good stuff.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all we got for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Prioritizing Profits. Remember to check us out. Social media, we're everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever it is. If you got any questions, feel free to throw them down in the comments. We love questions. We love answering them, whether they're frustrating or angry with us, whatever it is. We'll talk about it. But yeah, thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
All right. See you next time.
Prioritizing profits. Prioritizing
dangerous drug and product cases.